Hey there, and welcome back. Today I am with Sprite number 1, and today I'm going to do another reliability upgrade. I'm going to replace the fuel tank, but Moss Motors does not sell the original fuel tank for the Bug-Eye. They sell a tank that would work for a square Sprite with an adapter tube to make it work with a Sprite. So let's remove the old fuel tank and see how this new kit works. This is the kit that I ordered. I did order some other parts and they must have stuffed it inside the box for the fuel tank. Yep, we can see the black fuel tank, the filler neck tube that we need, various miscellaneous parts, and I did order a new sender as well. It's always a good idea to replace a sender when you're doing a new fuel tank. But before I get to installing those new parts, I need to take the old ones out. I'm going to remove the filler cap right now. That's the only thing from up here that I need to do. All the rest of the operation will be underneath the car. Looking underneath the car, I think this is the original fuel tank, and judging by all the corrosion on that fuel line, I have not removed that on this car. So I'm going to start up by using a wire brush to clean that up, get some penetrating oil in there, and hopefully that will come out without breaking the pipe. The drain on the bottom of the fuel tank looks just as bad, but if I have a new fuel tank, it doesn't matter if I break this one. And then the fuel tank is just held up by a few nuts around the perimeter of the tank. I might be in for a battle getting this one out. I'm going to use a flare wrench so that I don't round off the end of this nut. Let's wiggle it back and forth and see if I can get this loosened. When you're doing this, you want to watch the pipe and make sure that it's not twisting. You want to make sure that the nut is actually rotating on the pipe. It looks like it is. Starting to see some fuel come out there. So I need to grab a bucket as I start to undo this. Looks like the line is going to come off just fine. And if you're curious, I only had the penetrating fluid on there for about half an hour before I tried to unscrew that. It's pretty amazing how nice that nut looks after all these years. That's the good thing about British cars. They leak so much oil that it gathers up, turns into a coating on everything, and keeps it from corroding. The original drain plugs on these cars are Whitworth, so I'm using a 3/8 Whitworth socket to try to get this off. You can see there must be a lot of stuff on the bottom of this tank because I have the entire plug removed. It's not just pouring out. There's a lot of fuel still in this tank, but the sludge is preventing it from coming out the drain. Okay, I have all the nuts off now. A few of the washers are still stuck on there, holding it up. I'll probably have to pry it down off of the studs. There we go. Now we need to be careful because we have the wire for the sender here that we need to disconnect. Seems that the nut has become corroded to the terminal on the wire. I don't know that I'm going to get those two separated from each other. There we go. Now that nut should come off. Now the fuel tank can drop out the rest of the way. Here's the old tank that just came out of the car, and this is the new tank that they sent. It did arrive damaged. This little tab was sticking out of the box, so I'm going to have to bend that back into place before I put it back in. Obviously, I need to put in the fuel sender as well. And you'll notice that the filler neck is attached to this tank, and there is no filler neck on this one. I think this is the standard tank for an MG Midget. And then they send you this tube that you'll stick on with a hose that will make up the difference for not having that attached to the tank. I did order a new foam seal that will go right here. You can see the old one on the old tank still in place. Here's the new sender unit. It does come with a new rubber gasket, and it has this kind of spade terminal on it, and I'm going to take that off so that I can use the ring terminal straight onto this bolt like it was originally. The new sender does not come with screws, so I had to order the screw kit individually. To make this easier to install, I'm going to put all the screws in first. I have the sender connected up. When you install your tank, you need to have pads. There's a long bar pad there, a tiny square there, another tiny square there, and then another bar. These are still in place, so I'm not going to replace them. But if you ever saw those in the Moss catalog and wondered where they go, that is what the originals look like. So now I can bolt the tank back up, and I'll bolt it up without the filler neck, because the filler neck with the hose and clamps is not going to pass through that hose. So I'll have to climb into the boot and install the filler neck after the tank is in place. Now that the tank is bolted back in, just need to hook up my fuel line. Looks like the angle is just slightly different than the old tank. There we go. If you're going to replace the fuel filler grommet, now is the time to do it. I did order a new one for this car. Now to install the rest of that filler neck, I need to crawl in through this tiny hole and get back there to hook it up. I'm not going to take you in there with me. I'll be back with you when that's done. Okay, it's installed. I think the cap is sticking out slightly more than it was originally. One of the mistakes I made was not putting the cap on the first time that I put the tube in, and then the tube fell inside the car and I had to start over from the beginning again. So put the cap on there so that it can only go one direction. So what did I learn? I learned that this job is just as terrible as you might think it might be, which is completely unnecessary, because if you had the proper tank, it would save a ton of time, which brings me to another point. If you're doing the install yourself like I am, that's one thing. But if you're paying a shop to install a fuel tank, spending some extra money on a proper fuel tank and having them save all this labor and all this fiddling to make this work, you'll come out ahead by having the correct fuel tank. And not only that, but there'll be less places to leak, and it will be correct. Now I just need to put some fuel in it and check for leaks. Looks like it's working, and I don't see any leaks. So I think that's going to be it for today. If you want to see more videos like this, comment below and click subscribe. My fuel gauge is even working now.